This video is brought to you by FlexiSpot. More about them later in the video. Foundations can come in many different forms, from isolated pads to slab on grounds. And when you're thinking about slab on grounds and you see cracking, you often think there isn't enough reinforcement or potentially there's something wrong with the concrete mix. However, we're overlooking one key aspect, and this is the fact that it's sitting on soil. And soil can have a big impact on your foundation designs, especially when you're looking at expansive soils that shrink and swell over time. They can cause repetitive issues and big forces within your system. So there's either two ways that you can deal with it: making things flexible, so having bigger spans between supports, or stiffening up the system. Soil conditions and movement happen all over the place. Doesn't matter whether you're in Australia, New Zealand, or even the US. Expansive soils do behave the same. And where do you see most of those expansive soils? They're in your clays. What happens? They get water and they swell up. On the lower end of expansive soils, you can be downwards of 10 to 20 millimeters. On the upper end, you can have 75 millimeters of expansion. So you think about a whole soil expanding up, your foundations are moving a lot. And how much movement does your foundation need to deal with? If you're looking at a traditional building, which is just stumps on ground, sometimes you do need to tie your foundations together to make sure you don't get that huge differential movement, or potentially have bigger spans where the moisture conditions that you're deep enough, you're in a stable moisture condition so you don't need to deal with it. And it's not just dealing with the local area, but it's also good detailing around your building. For example, if you go and talk to your geotechnical engineer, and advice that they will give you is you shouldn't be planting gardens around your property. Why is that? Well, garden bed, you typically water. Water is changing the moisture conditions. So when they water, the moisture conditions change and you get a rise or fall of your foundations. It's also the same reason why you have guttering. You get the guttering, you put the stormwater down the drain instead of dropping it right out on the ground. You run it away from the property before it hits an outlet, either into your stormwater condition or into the ground, but further away from the property so the area around your building can maintain as much of a constant moisture condition as physically possible. Another aspect that you may not think of that can make it worse is trees. So trees both suck up water, or when they're cut down, potentially there's water that comes back. So even removing a tree could potentially have negative effects on your foundation, as it's changing that steady state of moisture conditions that you were seeing before. Cracking and movement is not just a problem for slab on grounds, but it's anything that you have in your foundation system. The more brittle your system is, the more likely it is to move and crack. So if you have a more brittle system, you need a stiffer system to deal with it. This is why you see on buildings, you see movement joints and control joints, as they will allow for that movement to happen. See, movement itself is not that bad, but if you haven't dealt with it, you can see these unsightly cracks. While they might not be a problem for the building, they potentially lead to usability and people worried about the movement that they're seeing. You can either make the building more flexible by having more movement joints, changing timber and plasterboard, for example, or looking at increasing the stiffness of your foundation system structure. So you need something that is really stiff. But effectively, by making a stiff system, you end up fighting with the ground conditions that you're dealing with instead of trying to detail around it to allow for that movement. When you're going for foundation systems, sometimes deeper is better in extremely volatile systems. As you get below, down deeper, you can get to a more even steady state of moisture conditions, meaning that the soil will be more stable and won't have such of that seasonal movement. You see, even if you do the best detailing, making sure that the garden beds are away and you've piped all your stormwater, there's only a limited amount of effort that you can do because water comes back, changing that movement over time. So in summer, it's drier. In winter, it's moist, so leading to a differential seasonal movement in your foundation systems. We've been talking about how the ground can affect the way your buildings behave and move and can crack underneath unsturdy conditions. Much like your desk environment, you want to make sure you're working on a sturdy desk to make sure you're working in the best environment possible. This is where the FlexiSpot E7 Pro comes in, and it's built around one simple idea. It's built around the person and the way you work. You can easily go from sitting to standing with one simple button. And it ranges with ease, and it's even risen with weights on it that may be working out with. So whether you're sitting, standing, and writing, so whether you're writing emails, doing models, or even talking to colleagues, you can rely on this sturdy desk to work, how and where you need to. It even allows me to be riding my bike, which other desks do not allow, easily moving from where I was sitting, standing, and riding, working with whatever environment that you want to. What's important to me is that I'm always working on a stable platform. It's versatile enough to work however and wherever I'm working. FlexiSpot's Black Friday sale is currently live with hefty discounts. You can choose between chipboard, bamboo, solid wood, or rubber wood, giving you a range of different tops and finishes. You can add a chair, a drawer, monitor arms, or even the wheels. So if you're looking for a sturdy work desk that can smoothly change heights, you won't go much past the FlexiSpot E7 Pro, which I've been using for a while, and I can attest to the sturdiness and quality that it brings. So don't forget to use my discount code and the link in the below description to pick one up today, especially during this Black Friday sale. Now let's get back to the analysis of foundation design. And with any foundation system, you don't want to get it wrong, potentially anything that gets built. You see, the cost of repairs are normally 10 to 20 times more expensive than if you did it right in the first place. So it's not something you don't want to overlook and cheap out on. As most people look at foundations, they're throwing hundreds of thousands of dollars into the ground that they don't see, but they don't see the long-lasting benefits or the additional impact of having to either do ground repairs, underpinning, or other expensive foundation repair works. So let's look at a foundation, a slab on ground. There's many prescriptive ways that you can deal with it. There's also detailed calculations that you can go through that will go later in the piece. They can deal with different expansions, or even if the fact that you have trees, they create expansion differentials that you may need to deal with. So if we're looking at expansive soils, and we take Australia, for example, they've broken it down into different ranges. I'll also put the equivalent for the US beside them. This is where we have M, H1, H2, and all the way up to E for extremely expansive systems. So when we're looking on a slab on ground, we can look at the prescriptive nature of AS 2870, where they say on an M condition for a site, depending on how much movement you have in it, you can see that you've got flexible frames all the way down to non-articulated masonry. So that's showing you how stiff your system needs to be due to the brittleness of the masonry structure. As you can see, the timber frame allows for the most flexibility, so it's at the top, where the non-antique masonry is very brittle and will crack earlier, so it needs a really stiff system. Even at the class M, it's forcing you to have beams at 6 meter centers. So what does that mean? It just means that every 6 meters you have a foundation. So if we take the overall stiffness of the system and divide it by the position those beams in, it gives us a certain stiffness. And as we go down into more expansive soils, you can see those beams come closer and closer and closer. So it's making the overall system extremely stiff. The same thing happens in the US code as well, where you can look at how many beams that you need over a certain area, depending on how expansive your soil is, to lead to a similar nature. But if we look at it in a little bit more detail and go beyond what the prescriptive nature is, it has one key aspect. So you're looking at the US on one side, and Australia's on another, and it looks like a very similar standard. You can see it's got heaving, or the expansion of the soil, and the settlement of the soil for those shrink and swell conditions. And when you go and back calculate it, what it actually means, it means what your allowable deflection is. So you can go into the code and say, what is my system? What is my allowable movement? How much movement am I expecting? And by combining both of them, you can work out how stiff your system has to be to achieve this. So you have two ways of fighting it. Looking at flexibility and then looking at stiffness, but it's only inevitably up to so much movement that you're allowed. By adding additional beams in your foundation, you're making your system extremely stiff. So that means you might be able to have a shallower system that is less efficient, but you can have more footings there. So it means less groundwork. There's really just a trade-off. Do you need more concrete, increase your stiffness, or more depth? And obviously, when you're looking at stiffness, more depth is always the best. So for your foundation system, you're really fighting against two aspects. It's really looking at stiffness versus flexibility. And it's the differential movement that is the real enemy here, as potentially different areas of your site can move differently that will cause the biggest aspect. So it's about trying to maintain a constant level of moisture as much as possible. And of course, you can't always do that because of seasonal movements, but you can try and minimize it. So let's quickly just jump into a quick calculation that can break down how we need to deal with this. In this area, it's got another couple of key aspects to the calculation. You can see how expansive your soil is, and how much stiffness you need to be. And then what we've also done here is back calculated it for allowable depth. So you can increase your depth, and you can look at how often you need beams, or increase your depth to make the beams more spaced out. So depending on how much work you're willing to do on site, you can add more beams in your raft foundation by making it shallower, or make it deeper and potentially a little bit more efficient, a little bit more work on site. but it means that you can have less beams in your system. I will share this calculation, but it's a back calculation of how to do a detailed assessment. Now that movement YS number is something that's really critical. You see there's two aspects to it. You got that YS that you need to get from the geotechnical engineer. That YS is not just necessarily just around the nature of the soil that you're dealing with, but also the site constraints. So what's causing the moisture condition changes, such as trees. In the other aspect, you've also got your allowable movement, which is then how much flexibility you can have in your system. By combining these, you can back calculate how much movement is expected. This is very similar to the way that they deal with expansive soils in the US as well, which is a simple calculation of allowable movement, expected movement, and how much stiffness you need to overcome with that. Now, the problem you may run into, you're talking to a lot of builders, that this is how I've built it all the time. I've built this 100 ways, I haven't had any problems. The problem with foundation systems is that when you have a problem, it's extremely expensive. And it's not something that will pop up straight away. They'll have many seasons, upwards and downward swells. That's why they have these standards that have been built over many decades that get you to the best conditions based on your soil conditions. It's not just something you can ignore. So you don't want to come back in 5 or 10 years and people are complaining, my building's really cracked, I need to repair it, and come back to you when you just tried to save a couple of dollars at the start. So it's around knowing what your soil conditions are and not cutting corners, even if someone said, I've done this 100 times or just did it on the adjacent property and it was fine. Especially if it's just a newly built system, you don't know whether it's going to have any problems in the next 3, 4, or 5 years. And if you did enjoy this video, there's a video here about the different types of foundation systems that you can have. And if you're interested in supporting a channel, there's 2 ways that you can do this. You can either become a YouTube or Patreon members. Without the support of my YouTube and Patreon members, this type of content would not be possible. As always, I hope you keep learning and I hope to see you next time.